All right. Right. Everyone, please take your seats. It's the last panel of the day, and we end with a tour de force. So, let me very briefly introduce our speaker for the last session. He is no less than Mo Ibrahim. Mo, thank you very much for being here. Give him a big applause. Let me give you a quote from Mo Ibrahim. I'm quoting you, Mo, so I hope it's okay. Far from being hopeless, Africa is full of hope and potential. Maybe more than any other continent, the challenge is to ensure that this potential is fully utilized, and it's not a small challenge. Mo is an African. He's Sudanese. He's very passionate about Africa. He's very invested in Africa's governance. He's very connected to the next generation, which he supports. He's been supporting the African Next Gen for a long time. He's a man that puts his money where his mouth is. Mo will engage in a dialogue with two of our students, with Fari from Senegal and Maria from Colombia. Fari, Maria, over to you.
Hello, can you hear me? Okay. Hello, my name is Fari Gay. I come from Senegal, and I'm doing my master's in international development.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Thanks for joining us in the last session. My name is Maria Bermudez, and I am a second-year student in international governance and diplomacy. And it is my great pleasure to be alongside Ferry moderating this conversation with Dr. Mo Ibrahim on governance and business. In a world where business actions and politics are increasingly intertwined, understanding this connection is very crucial nowadays. Just as political institutions learn from the business world, so does the private sector has gained more and more influence in public affairs as a catalyst for development and growth. This gearing between the public and private sector also allows for more integral and more versatile professionals in the next generation. And the skills required in both sectors tend to be similar today. Thanks to that, I have personally been able to navigate between jobs in the public sector in Colombia, my home country, in UN institutions, and in private corporations here in France. And that has allowed me to relate to the story, the life story of Dr. Mo Ibrahim as well. However, this gearing between both sectors has come from different reforms from the new public management that have tried to make the state smaller and more effective. And a revolutionary trend from these reforms is taking operations and strategies from the private sector and apply them in the public sphere. That has allowed for more accountability in the public service, citizen control, decentralization, and flexibility, making the public service more business-like. How do you think, Dr. Mo Ibrahim, a more integrated approach, one that combines strategies from the public and private sector, can lead us to more effective governance?
Well, thank you, both of you, and thank you, my dear friend Arantxa, for inviting me here, and thank you for staying late to listen to me. I just want to ask Ferris, I mean, why so many red shirts there? What is...
So these are the volunteers that have worked hard to put this event together.
Why, I volunteer too. Can I get a red
We will give you, depending on the results of the conversation,
Okay.
we'll give you a shirt.
No, I'm just curious, yeah. Just one remark. You said increasingly business has influence in government. Actually, business always had influence of government. Actually, business driven governments for hundreds of years. You, this is a fact, really, the link between business and governments, and sometimes with disastrous effect, sometimes usefully. It depends how it's the relationship. I was talking to a historian friend of mine, and he told me he was doing his PhD in about the Indian and the British sort of relationship. And he told me, see, I looked at all the cabinet papers. I did not find any decision taken by the cabinet to occupy India. It was never taken a decision. Government never discussed that. Who colonized India with the East India Company and the West India Company? Those the guys who really built their business empires, built their armies, and signed the agreements with the Maharajas and this and that. And this is the guys who created a de facto, and government just have to rush back, you know. Hong Kong, it is the opium traders in Hong Kong who is really upset because the Chinese were trying to stop the opium trade, and then the government has to go and protect them. They end up occupying Hong Kong. So business has always been driving government, and there is nothing new. But what we look for is a healthy relationship between the two, because there are things obviously can happen better. So don't think of business always as a wonderful tool to really help the government to be better, etc. Business can be also bad, can be very selfish, and can drive us to a very bad conclusion. But there are some business practices which are useful. What I think really is what we need is open government, where all the stakeholders have a place around the table. So it's not only business people. Also, we need the civil society. We need stakeholders. That's how we can create a national debate to shape what we are trying to do and going forward. But to idolize business as something which is going to come to rescue government, that is not true. And we look around us now, actually. One of the problems I can see is that regulators and governments are finding very hard to run after business. Business gone global long time ago. Governments cannot deal with that. You look at the taxation system around the world. Business are gaming the taxation around it, yeah? You heard about all this, you know, profit shifting and mispricing, a huge problem around the world. And, but because the tax collection is very much nationalized within the border of the country, they are unable to deal with the business who's gone global. They are giving the system. Look at the new technology, artificial intelligence. We don't know yet how to regulate that. That is a major development, has great benefit and has great threats. But our regulators, our parliamentarians, our MPs, our government people don't understand it. They don't know what it is, how it's going to affect us. But business is running ahead. They're building a chatbot, they're building everything and commercializing what is going on, and the government is behind, doesn't know what to do with it. So there is always issues there about how to deal really between government and business. Business is agile. It has clear objective, money, okay? And they will do everything possible to do that. But for governments, for regulation, how to harness this power is a problem. And we did not crack it yet. I hope I did not go off.
No, it's fine.
Okay.
Well, thank you for your answer. So, as a young person who wants to impact my country, I've always been told that I need to be a leader. So now leadership, we've been talking about leadership since this morning and even before. And I think it can be a bit tiring, but it's okay. It will be the end very soon. Yeah, so leadership, I think it's not something that you are, it's more in the actions. So it's about guiding, it's about enabling the people to work and to do something that they couldn't do individually. So, for example, there are some people who wants to work more about climate and they create projects in that sense, and which is great. There are others that can hop on every business opportunities that they see, and which is very great actually. They can work on agriculture, on education, health, on telecommunication, as you, Dr. Mo Ibrahim, did with CELTEL. And I believe that that's how we create a real society. That's how we have progress. That's how we reach development. So it reminds me of a concept that is very dear to me, which is the Ubuntu concept. Ubuntu, which in Swahili means I am because you are. It also means the humanity of each individual is the humanity of others. So how can we apply Ubuntu in our everyday life? So for me, when I see, for example, now that my country, Senegal, which is relatively young, we are, I think, over 70% of the population is under 35, which is very, very young, actually. And when I see all these projects that are springing up, all these people that want to take action, that want to build things, I can only dream bigger because I have a vision for my country and I know that I can't do it alone. So it's by acting with Ubuntu and all those other concepts that we can reach this kind of development. So this leads me to my second point about Ubuntu still, which is believing in others. Because believing in others resonates a lot too with democracy. Believing in others, it's passing the torch to the next generation, actually telling them, okay, now it's your time to take the things in hand. And it also reminds me of the farewell speech of Leopold Sédar Senghor when he was leaving the presidency in 1981. He said that he had two reasons why he resignated. And the first one was a reason of principle. So because he believed in the alternation of powers. And the second one was a reason of fact, because he was getting old and it was time for him to pass the torch to the next generation. And unfortunately, it is something that is very rare. We don't see it a lot in our countries in Africa. And it's not really democratic. And I believe in democracy a lot. So you, Dr. Mo Ibrahim, as an expert of governance, how do you think we can put at the service of the society, at the service of good governance, all these concepts as Ubuntu to meet the goals, the standards you fixed through the Ibrahim Index about democracy?
Right, that was a very long question. That's an essay, actually, not a question.
But you asked me to challenge you.
Okay,
so.
no, okay. You should sit here, I sit here, yeah. Right, I think there is a misunderstanding there. Ubuntu is not something we can apply here or apply there. It is not like a medicine or a pill you take it here to, This is a cultural issue. And it is part of African culture. Not because we are superior to you guys, no. It is because of the conditions of our community. You guys live here in France. When I say guy, I mean ladies and gentlemen. So please, don't be offended. You're sick, you go to the hospital. You get treated for free. You have no job, they pay you. Unemployment benefit. Yeah? This state creates a safety net for its people. In Africa, we don't have safety nets. Do you understand that? You don't have a safety net. You sick, good luck. No job, good luck. You know, so what people do in these circumstances, we create our own safety net. What's our own safety net? Is a community. My house get washed out in rain. All the people in the village come up to build my house. Why? Because next time his house will go and we need to go and do it. Somebody in the family, okay, you know, this guy died, he has young children, we all come together, how are we going to look after these children? We have to create our own safety net because of the lack of the government support. So not because we are more humane than you, we are not, but we have to do it. Otherwise we'll die. So that what bring issues like Ubuntu and whatever. This is a situation or a culture created by the economic condition in our society. Okay? So we support each other. I cannot have dinner if my neighbor here doesn't have dinner. Please come and share with me. You will not do that in Paris. Okay? So we need to understand that. So I differ with you. It's not something we can just import and say, hey, you French guys, come on, use Ubuntu. You will not do it. You don't need it. You understand what I'm saying? That it is the conditions which created that situation. It has nothing to do with leadership or with anything. It's just people need to survive. The only way to survive is to work together, create this community shield, which help us to go through the problems.
When I was talking about Ubuntu, it was more for us Africans because I know it's an African concept which needs to be used by us. So I wanted to emphasize on the fact that we should use them in our daily lives because they don't exist just for existing. They exist because they can have a utility for the society. So yeah.
Yeah, but my sister, well, my daughter actually, we use it all the time because that's part of our life. It's not something we say, oh, people, tomorrow are going to be Ubuntu. No, it is something part of our life, part of our culture. We have to do it to survive. It's nothing to do with leadership or being good or being bad. It's just a way of life. And then we move from there, we come and live in France. They don't forget it because you don't need it. Okay? So we need to look at the background or why people, or how cultures develop or how people.
Okay,
They tried to give me a hard time. They told me before the meeting they're going to give me a hard time. And I told them, I'm going to give you a hard time. So we're going to see, you judge at the end. Yeah. Okay,
let me just
Maria.
switch to another topic.
Yeah.
The index for African governance from the Ibrahim Foundation, it echoes the demand for accountability, for an accountable public service. And I realize it doesn't only make it possible to compare the performance of the different African countries, but it also corresponds with global development expectations, since there's a clear alignment between the index indicators and the sustainable development goals from the 2030 agenda. Now, according to the 2022 findings of the index, there are three main factors of governance that have been deteriorating in Africa in the last 3 to 4 years, which are mainly security, climate change, and participation of the civil society. I have to point out that these same issues resonate in Latin America, the same, or not the same, but very similar concerns in my region are also happening in Africa right now. Particularly, I want to refer to the issue of participation and representation of the civil society. This is currently a hot topic in countries like Colombia, Brazil, Argentina, Venezuela, but I would actually think it's rather a global concern, the lack of representation, the lack of trust from the people with their governments. What do you think are the main causes of this deterioration of the participation of the people, and what do you think could be the decisions that the next generation of young leaders sitting in this very same room to take to improve the situation?
That is a very difficult question, Maria, because you're putting your finger in the crisis we're going through. We are living in a world now which is really different, where the international order is breaking down. The rule book is being thrown out of the window. And we have really a very strange moment in our development as a human race now. Now, I probably blame the liberal democracies for what is going on now, because the liberal democracies, in my view, did not live up to their own values. And that is a big problem. They wrote a rule book, but they did not respect it, and they abused it. They built these global institutions, but they built it from their own perspective. And even then, they do not respect it. I'll give you example to save. I mean, you take any institution, take the World Trade Organization. It was built around the idea of free trade. Yeah? Everybody have to obey the rules and to... Now we look at what's happening. Nobody's obeying. I mean, the guys who designed the WTO is not respecting it. United States was facing some courts, some action complaints. So what the United States did, she stopped appointing judges, because they need to appoint judges to look at these cases, which crippled, so they could not meet. So for a number of years, the disputes could not be even looked at by the simple mechanism, okay, I'm not going to appoint justice. That's an abuse of the trade. Now we have this, which is strangely named the Inflation Reduction Act, which has nothing to do with inflation. It's a subsidy for certain industries, you know, in the tech area. That's it. It's some tech area, some green area. That's against the, you know, spirit and the rules of WTO. Is done. Then what? Europe has to come together now and do something else. So we're going now into subsidy. Okay? So that's breaking the whole thesis of free trade. So you create an organization, you convince us to come to join this organization, sign the dotted line to do, in Africa we have to remove subsidies to join them, and then you break the rule when it suits you, and that's it. Look at United Nations, Security Council cannot function. You agree? It cannot function. You have 5 guys sitting there, each one with a red card. Yeah? You cannot take any decision against any one of the 5 members. Those 5 members can do anything they want. Not only them, their client states, their friends are also protected. No decision can be made. What happened in Syria? No decision. What happened in Ukraine? No decision. What happened in Gaza? No decision. We don't take it because everybody protects their client states. No decision. So what is we are destroying the United Nations. We are destroying the international government, which is supposed to be the Security Council, which the liberal democracies created that. Who created the United Nations? Who created it? And then you end up with a very undemocratic situation. Out of those 5, for example, you have Britain and France. You don't have Germany or Japan. Either Germany or Japan has bigger economy, bigger population than either France or Britain. But France and Britain have 40% of the voting power, or of the veto power, 40%, with like 4% of the population of the world. You have India, 1.4 billion out. Do you believe China? Actually, China was not admitted into the Security Council for many years. Taiwan was put in to have the China seat. So liberal democracies really did not live up to their own values, which they kept preaching against us. And that is sad. And that's what resulted now in the mistrust of the, then a whole generation of populists started to appear up everywhere, everywhere. We are all sitting now afraid of Mr. Trump, you know, the second coming of Mr. Trump, like second coming of the Christ. We're expecting, you know, this guy to come in November, and he probably will come. In Europe, we have Orban, we have Turkish guy, we have the Russian guy, we have the Chinese guy. In Africa, we have few guys, and so the strong man became or woman, because we have this woman in Bangladesh too, another crazy woman there. So, sorry, excuse me, I speak frankly, okay? I'm not a diplomat, I'm not a government official, I'm nobody, so I speak frankly. And we have all those crazy characters around the world, around us. And our African leaders look at those people and say, "Hi, wonderful, I can do like that as well." So we end up with all fancy generals and dictators around the continent. This is something happening, a wave is coming across our world, unfortunately, and has to be stopped. And at the beginning, the people who claim to be liberals and Democrats need to live up to what they say. Need to live up. And they need to stop all these stupid actions. You know, when Russia invaded Ukraine, I had calls from my friends in the EU and in France actually, and say, oh, why African countries are not supporting the American resolution to condemn Russia? I told them, did you check the media, social media in Africa to see what's happening? No, okay. Here is what people are saying there. America submitting a resolution to condemn the illegal occupation and abuse of sovereignty of another country. Yes, it's a fair resolution. But did not the United States do the same in Iraq? Was there illegal reason for them to go into Iraq? Did they get permission from UN to go in Iraq? Did not. Is again abuse of sovereignty of another country. Why is it okay for America to do that and not okay for Russia to do what they're doing? Of course, well, we condemn what Russia did, but we should also condemn what America, and for America to submit this resolution was a mistake. At least maybe a country like France, which opposed that, or Germany, should have submitted that resolution. But can you see the hypocrisy? Okay, you claim to be a Democrat, you claim to love the rule of law, please behave, walk the talk. Otherwise, people lose trust in you. We lose trust on you, we end up with all those crazy populist guys. I think that is a problem in my view. It is our fault. We, the liberal Democrats, did not behave. And that is a problem.
Thank you so much. So now we see that we are in a world where many countries are put against each other because of conflicts of interest. And if I take the example of the Democratic Republic of Congo, where today we're talking about genocide going there because of the exploitation of minerals, how do you think that we can solve these kind of issues? What recommendation would you give African countries that are in possession of these resources to make the most of it, so to benefit from it, and also from the other regions, while keeping peace and stability in their country?
That's an important question. Africa is blessed with a lot of natural resources. And a lot of the really natural resources even needed for the new economy, the green economy, is in Africa. But unfortunately, Africa has gone through what people call it the resource scarce or whatever, which in reality is bad governance. It's bad governance. Everything starts from governance. If you don't have good governance, you end up with all these abuses and nonsense. And you look at how we wasted our resources, the kind of shoddy and shady and secretive deals which were done in the back rooms. You look at any president of Congo, you see how many billions he stacked in external banks. And any of them has been brought to justice? None. None. All those guys made billions. And in giving all this stuff, that's the family silver, you know. Family jewelry, you give it away for peanuts. You know, we had this strange thing in Guinea where this crook from Switzerland, what's his name, the Israeli investor, went and bought the license for the best mine of iron in the world, the highest quality of iron in the world. And he paid $120 million for that. The bribe was $3 million for the wife of the dictator and a Porsche car to, okay? And then he sold half of that mountain to a Brazilian company at a valuation of $5 billion. That is more than the budget of the whole country. Can you see how people really sell their country for a Porsche car? I mean, idiots. I don't respect them, because even if you a decent thief, you ask for $1 billion at least. Yeah? I mean, they are not even decent thieves. This is unfortunately those guys. And that is a total abuse. You look at Nigeria. Nigeria used to export food. Then they discovered some oil. And they left everything. They wanted to live on the rent from the oil, which has been stolen. Huge theft of that. And they end up being one of the poorest countries in the world. What we have done with our resources. But all is that happening, as we say, because of lack of good governance. That's why we need to focus on how to build good governance in our countries, how we have transparency, how we have a government focus on delivery to its people. You compare that with Botswana. Botswana had a wonderful experience with natural resources. They have these diamonds, but they had the best deal with the beers. Nobody had a deal like that with them. And all the money went into national development. Not a cent was stolen. This is Botswana. Botswana had a higher score than many European countries in transparency, in governance, and lack of corruption. Can you believe that? We have an African country better than many European countries. It can be done. It's not magic. It's just you need to believe in your people and you need to act for the people. I'm going to give you an example. President Masiri, who was president for a number of years in 2 terms, of course, and he was a member of the board of our foundation. And I remember once we're having a dinner after, discussion over dinner after the board meeting. And Kofi Annan, who heads our prize committee at the time, he's playful and sometimes can be mischievous. So he asked this guy why, we had a problem with him in Addis and coming to Addis and many years ago, and he caused a diplomatic accident. We said, "Oh, Kofi, what happened?" He said, "I was an officer at the United Nations at the time, young officer, and Masiri was coming to the meeting of the African, at the time, Organization of Africa, OAU at the time. And the Emperor Haile Selassie went to the airport because he received the, the head of states, rolled the red carpet, waiting for and the plane comes and people come, but there's no Masiri. So they rail up the carpet and go. And then at the end, Masiri comes out and there's nobody wait to meet him. What happened? He was flying economy and he was sitting in the back of the plane. And that became an incident. And then we asked, Masiri, why are you flying economy? That was the president of Botswana. And he said, look, when I came to power, the economy was in a bad shape. And I really need to curtail, any unnecessary expenses in the government. And I didn't want to tell people, don't do this or don't do that. What I do, I fly economy. Then every minister will fly economy. Any government official will fly economy. Every business leader will fly economy because it's not proper. So I said, by doing it yourself, give an example, everybody falls in line without being harsh and telling people what to do and not to do. This is the leadership, how people lead from the front. And he said, actually, many people don't understand this. He said he was mediating on Congo. There's always problems in DRC. And one day he arrived at the Kinshasa and going to the VIP side, and then the head of the parliament, what they call the speaker of the parliament, came to him and said, Mr. President, you're causing us a lot of problems. Because this is on TV. And everybody in Congo knows you're a traveling economy. He said, do you know that not only me, every MP in DRC flies first class. You are causing us a big problem. What people say about us. Say, I have a suggestion to you, Mr. President. We will pay your ticket. Shall we? And Basiri said, you see, this idiot, he doesn't understand what I'm doing. This is DRC. And that is the difference between DRC and Botswana. There's difference between good governance and bad governance. The guys who abuse the resources and the guys who use the resources for the benefit of people. This is the leadership. And not many people know these stories. It's small stories like this which define really this wonderful leadership of how people steer their countries forward. Don't applaud me, applaud Masiri. I didn't do that. I still travel first class. Sorry.
Talking about good governance, you mentioned something that I believe is key, although it sounds simple, but it's decency. And I think we need that as a basic value in all of our leaders. Decent leaders that, as you were saying, are working for a good governance. They start at home. Leadership also reflects the values that you have in your family, in your community, and then how you reflect that to your country. But above that, what other skills do you think are necessary either for political or for business success? What do you think is key for young generations, for new generations to have in the radar, to keep in mind if they want to become effective leaders?
My message really for young people, and I think everybody here is young except me, my suggestion really is that don't do what we did. Our generation messed up everywhere. In Africa we messed up, in Europe, everywhere we messed up. We need really a new model for humanity. We need people really who look forward for the future, who walk the talk. When you say, I am for green, okay, show me. You drive an electric car, you behave as such. when they increase the price of petrol, don't go out demonstrating and put on a yellow vest, because that's stupid. How could you, on one hand, argue for reducing carbon, and at the same time, you're asking for subsidy for fuel? Do you know the amount of subsidy for fuel we're paying in the world is $400 billion. Every year, we are giving $400 billion subsidies for fossil. Then we go to COP27, we go COP28, and we lecture and we talk and la 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 la. That's crap. That's nonsense. You guys walk the talk. If you are serious, do it. Most important, go and vote. One problem I have with you guys is you don't vote. You love to demonstrate. In a liberal democracy, who cares about demonstrators? What we care is about the ballot box. In UK, I am British, by the way, we committed a huge act of self-harm by voting for Brexit. And everybody knows it. It's absolute sham. Why? Because young people did not vote. Young people did not vote. The guys who voted, over 95%, are the guys above 60 years old. Those guys have no stake in the future. Why should they be even allowed to vote? Really, I mean, to be honest, this is serious. If you are voting about something important, which really going to shape our future, I think the voting system must be calibrated. If I'm 15 or 20 years old, I have more stake in the future. I should have 3 or 4 votes, not 1. If I'm 80 years, I should have half a vote. Because I'm voting on something which I'm not going to live to see the consequences of it. Why should you be given even a vote? Yeah? Do you realize it is your future which our generation, is messing up with? Absolutely. Because we look for immediate gratification. This, unfortunately, one of our main cultures here in the West, immediate gratification. I saw this ad in the TV, oh, I want that blouse, I want that shoes, I want that bag, I want this. It's immediate gratification, everything wanted now. And future will take care of itself. Climate, oh, somebody will write a soft code and some software and solve the climate problem. Somehow it will happen. It will not happen. Don't kid yourselves. You need to behave. You need to act. And you need to vote. Please go and let us hear your voice. Because otherwise, we're going to mess up your future. You know why? I'm an old man. I don't care. I'd rather pay less tax now, enjoy life, and die in a few years, and you guys deal with your problems. Okay? It's simple. Logic. So please, make your voice heard. Stand up. And don't listen to what other people say. You can have a big constituency, you can shape the future, and stop going out demonstrating. It doesn't work. Go and vote. Yeah? Okay, you agree?
I agree.
Thank you.
Well, we're running out of time, so I'll ask my last question, a short question, a challenge maybe. And you can start queuing for the questions. There are mics down the aisle. So, Dr. Ibrahim, today we see that technology is incorporated in every sector: health, economy, communication, and even justice. Because in some countries we see that they use the artificial intelligence to measure or fight against corruption. And I want to know, how do you think we can leverage this progress, artificial intelligence, and all this technological progress to change, to have change, to create change when it comes to governance?
Yeah, of course, technology is important, and we all need to appreciate technology have is a sword with two edges, as usual. I mean, it's up to us how we're going to utilize technology. For a starter, it gives us a lot of opportunity. You just think of like telemedicine. When people don't have access to clinic or whatever, but they can be diagnosed, can be sorted out via the internet, yeah? The way we can deal with mass data, because then we know how policy should be driven by data. And if you cannot crunch the data, then we don't know what to do, yeah? So data is very important, and dealing with data is really important. There's no question about that. To help the voting system, if you have a digital ID, then it's very difficult for the government to falsify the vote or to steal the vote. Subsidies given to poor people in many countries, most of it, by the way, was stolen. Most of this was stolen, a huge corruption. But then people introduced, an ID system which enabled people to receive what is theirs and stop corruption. Okay? Now, everybody walking around with a radio and TV station in his pocket, yeah? This phone is your personal TV station and radio, because you record things and send it to other people, yeah? You do that. That helped a lot transparency, because, it's difficult for people at the customs to ask for a bribe or be able to do this, because a lot of the misbehavior can be captured and transmitted widely. So these phones and digital devices are helping to more transparency and better behavior. Of course, it can be used for bad purposes as well, and that's another problem of the so it depends how we use that. But this is an important tool for governments. It helps us increase efficiency, reduce cost, and really democratize. One thing this device has helped us is to democratize the process of information. Everybody here now can say anything and broadcast it. You don't have to go to the France 24 or BBC to try to send a message or to say something, to be invited. You can go and do it. And so there is an element of democratization there. And but at the same time, as I said, there is some other consequences also, which is not very nice.
Thank you, Dr. Mo Ibrahim. We're opening the session for the audience to ask their questions. We're going to be taking one question from each side at the same time. Please introduce yourselves, tell us where you're from, which masters you're in, and then please just stick to one question per person. Lady over here.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mo Ibrahim. My name is Shamsia. I am Austrian Albanian, and I'm in the Master International Development at PSIA. My question refers to the African Continental Free Trade Agreement, and I would be curious, what do you think is the future of this agreement and what kind of opportunities it has for the continent and countries in the continent, and also what role the business should play or can play to advance this agreement? Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here, Mr. Ibrahim. So my name is John Michael. I'm from Niger and Angola. And as a businessman who has valuable experiences in economic politics, do you think an African protectionism, like what is happening right now in Western Africa, could be a good way to create a sustainable development on the overall continent? Or if no, how can we structure or restructure our partnerships with non-African allies to achieve this long-term goal? Thank you.
I think the two are linked in a way. Free trade agreement is very important for Africa. Wherever I go around in Africa, I raise that issue with everybody in Africa. People say Africa, Africa. Africa is 54 countries. Huh? It's not one country. And people think Africa is just one entity. No, it's 54. And they have different languages, they have different laws, different economies, etc. Some African countries also are very small countries. Some African countries are completely within other countries. Can you imagine that? We have countries completely inside other countries. I mean, it's great. All these borders were created by a colonial system, unfortunately. And unfortunately could not be changed without a big war throughout the continent. That's why Rita said, okay, we live with these borders. But it created major problems. But that's another story. Now, I tell my brothers and sisters in Africa, China is the same population like Africa, right? Same population. If China was 54 countries, like Africa, each country has its own language, customs, rules, whatever. Where China would have been today would have been exactly where Africa is. Why China is there? Because it is one country. One country, it means that is a huge market, very attractive for investment, and has heft power because of its mass. It's 1.4 billion people. When the leader of China walks into the room, he talks in behalf of 1.4 million people. You need to pay attention. When a leader from one of our countries comes, he's talking about 1.5 million people. Who cares? None. You don't have, and imagine the cost of having 54 countries. We need to have 54 ambassadors in New York at UN, 54 ambassadors in Washington, 54 ambassadors in China, 54. Can you just think of the cost of that? We have 54 governments. What's the cost of 54 governments? It's stupid. And we tell our friends, look at those Europeans. They're smart. They're crafty. The best thing they did in Europe was the common market. That is the main achievement of the European Union. It is amazing to have all those guys together, to have one negotiator negotiating in behalf of all those people, 500 million people, or now minus UK, 450. That is power. You have a good deal. You come from Niger.
Yeah.
Okay. Your president go, and if you have one, you don't have one now, but okay. You have a crazy general, I know.
Yeah, I know. That's special.
Do you have the power to go and sit across the table from US or Europe or to negotiate any trade deal? You have no power because you are tiny. You have no power. This is a jungle. Yeah? The elephants has a position, the lions has a position, and the rabbits has a position. So we are rabbits, and everybody trade over you because you are a rabbit. Now you need to come together, and then you see the real growth of the economy. We need to have freedom of movement of people, freedom of movement of capital in Africa. We need to have one negotiator negotiating on behalf of all Africa. And it says 54 guys with no power. What they get? So it's just beyond imagination that we fail to really conclude this agreement sooner. Still, we're struggling with getting ratification and stuff like that. I'm a great believer, actually, in the United States of Africa. If we can get that, it will be wonderful. Meanwhile, I'm happy to have the common market of Africa. Let's hope we can do that.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for this wonderful panel. My name is Rishwa. I'm a second-year master's student of governance and diplomacy. My question would actually be picking from what you said in the very beginning of the importance of contextualizing and how the Western world is different from the African context and also from, let's say, the Asian context. And what you were saying, Farri, I'm sorry if I spoke your name incorrectly, on the fact that the growing technology and the use of AI. So we have seen in African context and in many other Asian and Latin American contexts as well that the governments are using digital public infrastructure, AI, satellite imagery. I can take the example of, let's say, Togo. In Togo, during the pandemic, there was a project called NoVC, with which they tracked the households, analyzed their mobile internet data, and based on that, made a transfer of 34 million USD to 9,200,000 beneficiaries, which is a huge population for Togo, which is just 8 million in total. So that would, I think, in some way, the West probably, the liberal minds would say that that's data, the governments did not respect the data privacy of the people. But there are so many cases that comes up with this in the sense that when there is no food on the table, do you really care about data privacy or you care about being fed? What would be your, what are your views on that? And I actually open it for everyone in the panel, and I would love to hear all your views. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jordan. I'm from Canada, and I'm studying international governance and diplomacy. And there's a similar thread related to context. So I share your belief that good governance is the key to unlocking the limitless potential of the continent. Since 2019, I've worked with a group from East Africa and Canada to launch an organization that is walking alongside local leaders. And my question is grounded in my experience in Rwanda. I really admire the development that Rwanda has experienced since the genocide against the Tutsi in 1994. Yet President Kagame has a lot of critics, especially in the West. And a lot of my Rwandan friends would say that they don't understand the context. So I'm curious how you would take context into consideration when you're assessing and supporting leaders and governance structures.
Thank you very much. I think this question is always raised, and especially in the context of developing countries like Africa and African countries, etc. And let me say one thing first about the index, how we design the index. We think governance really is about delivery, is delivery of a basket of public goods to the people. That's the whole thing. You need to deliver. What you need to deliver, we think, are four main areas. One is the rule of law and security of people. Only government can provide that. One is the issue of human development, health, education, gender, etc. The third one is the economy. Unemployment, inflation, growth, transparency, all this stuff to deal with the economy, infrastructure, you know, how much kilometer of roads, water, electricity, blah, blah. And then the soft piece, which is the issue of rights and participation of people. And these are all deliverables. So maybe you are not delivering well in democracy, but you delivered well in other areas, like what happened in Rwanda. You still can score a reasonable score. You're going to be scored low here, but if you provide food for the people, you provide jobs, you provide electricity for people, that's important. So you get marks for that. Yeah? So when people, aside from Africa, when you look at China, we have to recognize that China took 500 million people out of poverty in the last 25 years or so. You remember the development goals, Millennium Development Goals, which were supposed to be developed by 2015. One of the main hopes there is to halve the world poverty. In 2015, everybody took a vector lap. We said we halved poverty. That was a big lie, okay? Because we did not have poverty. China halved poverty. They took 500 million people out of poverty. That improved the global number, and then UN said, oh, we met it. In Africa, poverty increased, okay? So, but when you evaluate China, we need to acknowledge that taking 500 million people out of poverty is a great act. We may not agree with the policies of the Communist Party of China. Fine. But at least in that area, we say, wonderful, we applaud you. So, because we need, we applaud you because we need to really objective in our evaluation of the deliverables. That's why the index have all these deliverables. Okay? So I can differ with you in one area, but I can agree with you in another. There's nothing wrong with that. So that is how we need to evaluate. I give you a good example. I was having one-to-one with Prime Minister Haile Mariam, Prime Minister of Ethiopia at that time. And I asked him, I said, what's happening? I was in Ethiopia last month, and there was a lot of demonstration in the streets. What's going on in your country? And because we know at that point of time, for like 20 years, Ethiopia was achieving 10% growth per year. You know, second after China, 10% per year. Okay? So I asked him, I said, Prime Minister, why kids are, you know, in the streets? Why people are demonstrating? And he gave me a very interesting answer, which I will quote. He said, you know what? When people are hungry, all they care about is where I'm going to find dinner. Yeah? I need to eat. I need to feed my children. They don't care about democracy, or they don't even think about democracy. They're rushing around trying to have food. After they eat, then they start asking, what about my rights? And I think that they'll think about it, there is some wisdom there. If you are hungry, your first objective is to find food, not democracy. Natural. But when you are fed, then you start to think about your rights. Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, my name is Paula. I am studying international security here at PSIA in my first year. Thanks so much for being here with us. I was especially excited about your suggestion for the reform of the voting system, so very much looking forward to having 3 or 4 votes in the future.
I think it's a good idea. Really, you guys should you are young people. You should vote for that. You should, yeah. Push Macron to do that, yeah.
Yeah. I wanted to get back to a topic we have discussed previously during this day, but not so much in this panel, which is climate change. And I was wondering, for you as someone who has been very successful in the private sector, where do you see the role of the private sector here in the future? Also, what should we push the private sector to do here to assume responsibility? And then, as a second part of the question, how can we balance this with growth and development, or how can we make this fit together, kind of? Yeah, very much looking forward to hearing your view on this. Thanks.
Good evening. My name is Mariam. I'm in the Master in International Governance and Diplomacy. My question is on corruption, particularly in the mining of raw materials critical for the green transition. We're expected to see increase in these mining activities in African countries like DRC and Namibia. And I was just wondering, like, what frameworks do you think could be put in place to ensure more transparency in the mining industry? Do you think it's time to open up checks in corruption to more than just government institutions, but to also civil societies in the permitting process? And also, if it's now the time to establish geological surveys in African countries to ensure that there is accuracy and transparency in estimation of raw materials? And also, how do you think digital technologies such as AI can be used to ensure more transparency in the monitoring process, and whichever other ideas you have about ensuring more transparency? Thank you.
Well, thank you. Too many questions, but okay. Business. I'm appalled at how when we talk about corruption and governance, we only focus on governance in the castle, in the palace, the government. We need governance also at company headquarters, at boardrooms, because business is very essential player here. Let me start by saying, do you think a government official corrupting himself or corrupting another government official, who is a partner in corruption to any bad politician? He's a businessman. Yeah? For every corrupt public official, there is at least a dozen corrupt business people. Is that sensible? Yeah. So, where are those 12 against 1? Where are those hundreds and thousands of business people who are partner in the crime of corruption? Have you heard about any of them? Look, corruption was legal in Europe, right? And it was legal in US. And what you do at that time, my CFO was a Frenchman. He told me, if you want to pay anybody, you have no problem. We'll put it under business expense, and it is tax deductible. Okay? That was the state of Europe and the United States. Then there was discussion about real is not nice, we need to do something. Europe and America agreed to introduce anti-corruption laws. The American went ahead with what they call the Foreign Corruption Act, I think. It's called the FCA, yeah? And implemented, I think, in 85 or 84. Europe then said, opportunity for us, delayed. Why? To give their business people few years so they can bribe without competition from the America, gives them good business advantage. They delayed that for a few years. It took 5, 6 years for Europe to introduce the laws of corruption, anti-corruption laws. Okay? And that was only 30 years ago. Now, over these years, can you name the number of people or companies which have been prosecuted in these wonderful 27 European countries? Very difficult. Very difficult. So, the statement from Europe is that there is no corruption. So if there is no corruption in Europe, there is no corrupt business people, then there is no corrupt people in Africa, no corrupt politicians. Because those politicians are not corrupting themselves. Who's corrupting them? So this goes back to what I said earlier on, walk the talk. This is the problem with liberal democracies. They never live up to their values. There is no prosecution. Think, when is the last time people had a prosecution? There was a total event 15 years ago. None. Why? What is the reason? Because it's okay. If our people go and corrupt and this is an advantage for us, we make more money, jobs for boys, we do it. So, now, do you know, according to the United Nations, these are not my figures, United Nations figures, the amount of illicit financial flows out of Africa every year is $100 billion. You heard that number? $100 billion every year taken out of Africa in illicit financial flows. What exactly illicit financial flows? Most of it is mispricing and profit shifting. You heard about these things? Mispricing and profit shifting. And this is happening all the time, and nobody discussing it. Why? Because it is a benefit for our companies here in Europe and the United States. So let us not open that Pandora box. Not until some European countries then woke up one morning and discovered actually that this problem reaches their shores. In Britain, they discovered that Starbucks doesn't pay any taxes. They discovered Apple, Google, those guys don't pay any taxes. They have billions of business, profits. No, because this company books the sales to Ireland. They're going to have a sweet deal with Ireland, sweetheart deal. And then you don't pay tax where the profit did arise because you book the sale somewhere else. That is called profit shifting. And then France started to hear the same problem. Oh, no, we need to have a tax on tech and something. The whole problem is governance in the boardroom does not exist, unfortunately. Extremely bad governance. And people should raise that issue. Not only that, we need also to force the laws. And those people, because they keep corrupting with impunity. None of those guys went to prison. None. How much? Do you understand what does it mean $100 billion out of Africa every year? You check that number, the UN number. Do you know the total amount of aid, they call it aid, going to Africa? Is 53 billion. So who is aiding whom? We in Africa are supporting you guys. You should be very grateful. Really, do you know that? You think you are giving us charity? We're giving you charity, actually. Yeah, this is the truth. And nobody's acting on this. And this is the issue. When we need to act on all this stuff. So we need a better governance also in the boardrooms of corporations because they have been misbehaving and getting away with it. And these are the most respectable, greatest company in the universe. And where, they moved the IBR to a small island, as if the search engine was discovered in a little island, or as if the Apple computer. I mean, this is rubbish. How could that be allowed? This is a problem. So unless we behave and live up to our values, we are going nowhere. And then people lose trust in liberal democracy. We lose trust in our governments. It's bad. It's sad. We lose trust in our institutions. Then we become open to all those crazy people, the populists. I know here you have Le Pen and some other people here. And you have all those crazy guys. And this is people who are going to rule the world. Thanks to our hubris, unfortunately. Anyway, I know it is sad and not comfortable what I'm saying. I do apologize. I spoil your weekend. But it is really bad stuff is happening around us. And you need, as a young people, to stand up because it is your future. It's not our future. It's your future. And you don't want this nonsense to continue. Do I deserve now a red shirt?
So, what a great way to end a long day. Let me very briefly give back to you lots of things that we've been discussing during the day. We've heard a lot of words associated with leadership, and I think it's opportune to mention them. We've heard about accountability. We heard accountability across many of the panels during the day. We've heard about the force of example, the importance of leading with the example. We've heard about participation, representation. We've heard about coherence and how coherence builds trust, about how incoherence feeds mistrust. We've heard about living up to your principles, being capable of incarnating those principles that you believe in. I want to take three quotes that were mentioned during the day, which I thought were useful. One, referring to Albert Camus, you try to rebuild a new system while making sure that the current one keeps functioning. This idea that we may be tempted to throw our governance systems out of the window, but that maybe we've got to find a way to do with what we have and reform what we have in the direction of where we want to go. The idea that we need to sustain our causes, that sustain being behind certain causes, because that's how we would get to change our world around us, not just move from one thing to the next, but being very clearly behind a cause. I can tell you that I'm going to stand behind two causes in the next 2 years. One, Madam Secretary General of the United Nations. Two, alternation in the representation of the presidents of the General Assembly. In 78 years, only for women, it's not normal. So I will put my weight behind these two causes. I think if we all put our weight behind the causes that are dear to us, we will get to progress. Finally, this idea that we also heard that the world is not binary, that it's not just black and white, that there are lots of shades of gray, and that it's in those shades of gray that we sometimes need to find our spaces. Let me thank you. You've been engaging all through the day. You've participated, you've asked questions, you've challenged. You've said when you agreed, also when you disagreed, and this is the name of the game, as we all know here in Sciences Po. Let me thank in particular the men and women in the red shirts, and please give them a big applause. These are the student volunteers that have been curating this program, working with all of you. There is a few others that don't wear red shirts, but I know they've been putting a lot of work, a lot of effort into making it happen. They are part of the PSIA and extended Sciences Po family, working to make sure this works for all of us. Let's also give them an applause. Thank you also to our sponsors, the New York Times and the CMA-CGM, who have contributed to delivering this event. Many thanks. This is the end of the 9th edition, but let's make sure that we start preparing. You can take the rest of the day off, of course, but as from tomorrow, let's get ready to prepare the 10th edition next year. Thank you again, and thanks to our participants.